in the lush, sun-dappled forests of the Pacific Northwest, where ancient cedars whispered secrets to the wind and crystal-clear streams danced over mossy rocks, a tiny baby monkey named Miko stirred from his nap. Barely a month old, with fur as soft as dandelion fluff and eyes wide with wonder, Miko was no ordinary primate. He was a Japanese macaque, or snow monkey, who had somehow ended up in this American wilderness, perhaps escaped from a wildlife sanctuary or smuggled by well-meaning but misguided humans. But in this verdant paradise along the Oregon coast, Miko's world was about to explode into an adventure that would redefine friendship in the animal kingdom. Started with a splash. Miko, clad in a makeshift diaper fashioned from soft leaves by his watchful mother, toddled to the edge of the babbling brook. The water sparkled like 1,000 diamonds under the morning sun, inviting him to dip his tiny toes. With a gleeful squeak, he plunged in, his laughter echoing through the trees like a melody. But as he splashed, something yellow and fluffy bobbed up from the reeds, a duckling, quacking in surprise. And then, from the shadows, a sly red fox emerged, his amber eyes twinkling with curiosity. In that instant, 3 unlikely souls locked eyes, and the forest held its breath. Little did Miko know, this playful encounter would spark the biggest adventure of his young life. Joy was fleeting. Miko's mother had vanished that dawn, lured away by the distant call of a logging truck rumbling through the woods. Human encroachment had been creeping closer, chainsaws buzzing like angry hornets, felling trees that had stood for centuries. Miko, left alone in their hidden nest, felt a sharp pang of fear gnaw at his tiny heart. He was too small to forage, too vulnerable to predators. His diaper, now soggy from the stream, chafed against his skin, a reminder of his helplessness. Hunger twisted in his belly, and the vast forest suddenly felt like a monster, swallowing him whole. Tears welled in his eyes as he huddled by the water's edge, his laughter turning to whimpers. How could a baby monkey survive in this wild American landscape, where eagles soared overhead and bears lumbered through the underbrush? The stream was a lifeline in this temperate rainforest, fed by melting snow from the Cascade Mountains. Ferns unfurled like green umbrellas along its banks, and salmon leaped upstream in silver flashes during spawning season. Miko had been born in a small troop that roamed these woods, adapting to the cooler climates much like their kin in Japan bathed in hot springs. But now, alone, he noticed every detail with heightened senses, the cool water lapping at his fur, the scent of pine and earth mingling with the faint, musky odor of the approaching fox. The duckling, whom Miko would later name Ducky, was a mallard hatchling, his downy feathers still yellow and pristine, separated from his flock by a sudden storm the night before. The fox, sly and lean, was a red fox kit named Finn, orphaned after a highway accident claimed his family, a common tragedy in these parts where roads sliced through wildlife corridors. Finn's fur gleamed like autumn leaves, and his playful grin hid a loneliness that mirrored Miko's own. As the 3 creatures eyed each other warily, time seemed to stretch. Miko froze, his tiny hands clutching a pebble, waiting for the fox to pounce or the duckling to flee. The forest sounds amplified, the rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, the trickle of water. Would this be the end, or the beginning? Miko's heart pounded, each second an eternity, as he wondered if trust could bridge the gap between predator, prey, and primate. Then, in a twist of fate, help arrived in feathers and fur. Ducky, sensing Miko's distress, waddled closer and nuzzled his hand with a soft beak, offering a worm he'd foraged from the mud. Finn, instead of attacking, bounded into the water with a splash that sent droplets flying like confetti. "Hey, little guy," Finn seemed to yip through his actions. "Let's play." Their energy was infectious. Miko's whimpers turned back to giggles as they chased water striders together. In this American wild, where diverse species coexisted in national parks like Olympic or Crater Lake, alliances formed out of necessity. Ducky taught Miko to float on the current, while Finn shared berries from hidden bushes, forging a bond that defied nature's rules. That day marked Miko's transformation. From a frightened infant to a bold explorer, he learned that adventure wasn't about size or strength, but courage and connection. No longer alone, he splashed deeper into the stream, his diaper forgotten in the fun, his spirit ignited by these new friends. In the tapestry of America's untamed lands, true friendship blooms in unexpected places, teaching us that differences are the bridges to unbreakable bonds. The morning mist still clung to the ferns when Miko, Ducky, and Finn set off along the stream. What began as playful splashing had turned into something deeper, a quiet pact among three lost souls. The tiny macaque, the orphaned mallard duckling, and the young red fox moved together now, an odd trio threading through the emerald heart of Oregon's coastal rainforest. A sudden roar shattered the peace. Not a bear or cougar, but the mechanical thunder of chainsaws echoing from upstream. Orange survey ribbons fluttered on trees like warning flags, marking the edge of a new logging clear-cut. Smoke curled into the sky, and the sharp scent of fresh-cut pine stung their noses. Miko froze, his tiny hands trembling. This was no gentle forest sound. This was destruction marching closer. The noise drove terror into Miko's heart. He remembered his mother's last frantic calls before she vanished toward that very rumble. Now the machines were returning, devouring the ancient trees that had sheltered his troop. Ducky's downy feathers puffed in fear. He had seen his siblings scattered by a storm, but this felt worse, permanent. Finn's ears flattened. He knew these sounds too well. The same machines had turned the quiet meadow where his den once stood into a barren stump field. The three friends huddled together on a mossy log, small against the growing threat. For the first time since meeting, laughter was gone. Hunger returned, sharper now, as frightened animals fled and food became scarce. They followed a narrow deer trail winding beneath towering Sitka spruce and western hemlock, their trunks draped in lichen like old men's beards. Sword ferns brushed against Miko's fur as he rode on Finn's back for safety, while Ducky paddled in tiny side pools. Salmonberries hung ripe and red along the path, sweet bursts of summer that Finn gently plucked and shared. The forest floor was a carpet of oxalis and trillium, alive with the hidden scurries of voles and salamanders. Overhead, bald eagles circled, their cries reminding everyone that danger watched from above. This was Olympic National Forestland, one of America's last great temperate rainforests, now bordered by private timber holdings hungry for bored feet. Night fell early under the dense canopy. The chainsaws had stopped, but an uneasy quiet replaced them. The trio found shelter beneath an uprooted cedar, its massive roots forming a natural cave. Rain began to patter, soft Pacific Northwest drizzle that soaked everything slowly. They waited, pressed close for warmth, listening to the distant crack of falling trees in the dark. Would morning bring safety, or would the machines reach their hiding place? Just before dawn, help arrived on silent wings. A young barred owl named Luna, wise beyond her years, landed on a branch above them. Having watched their journey from the treetops, she hooted softly. In the language of the forest, she warned of a safe path, a hidden ravine leading deeper into protected parkland where chainsaws could not follow. With Luna guiding from above, the friends moved at first light. By midday, they crossed into old-growth sanctuary. The trees grew impossibly tall, untouched for centuries. Here, the air felt different, cleaner, quieter. Miko's fear began to loosen its grip. He climbed higher than ever before, swinging between vines with growing confidence. Ducky discovered quiet ponds teeming with insects, and Finn's tail wagged again as he chased shadows in sunbeams. Sometimes the greatest dangers push us toward the safest places, and the strongest friendships are forged in the shadow of shared threat. Deep in the protected heart of Olympic National Park, the friends thought they had found safety. Ancient trees formed a cathedral of green, sunlight piercing the canopy in golden shafts. But the forest had one more test waiting. The Ho River, wide and wild with spring snowmelt from the Olympic Mountains. Late afternoon brought them to the riverbank. The water roared like a living thing, turquoise, icy, and swollen from heavy rains. Massive logs tumbled past like toys, crashing against boulders. Miko clung to Finn's fur, staring at the far shore where the trail continued into deeper wilderness. There was no way around. The river carved a barrier between them and true sanctuary. One wrong step, and the current would sweep them away forever. Fear gripped them harder than ever. Ducky, a strong swimmer among ducks, still quivered at the sight. The river was far too fierce for his tiny body. Finn paced the gravel bar, whining softly. He could swim, but not while carrying Miko. The baby monkey's eyes filled with tears again. His diaper, now tattered and muddy from days of travel, hung loose. Exhaustion weighed on all three. Hunger gnawed anew. The old growth offered shade but few easy berries this early in the season. Worst of all, night was coming, and with it colder air rolling down from glaciers. If they stayed on this side, they risked exposure. If they tried to cross, they risked everything. The Hoh is one of America's wildest rivers, protected within the national park to keep its braided channels and logjams intact. Roosevelt elk grazed on distant floodplains, their bugles echoing faintly. Kingfishers dove for fish in quieter eddies, and dippers bobbed on midstream rocks. Driftwood piles towered like barricades, silvered by years of polishing. The air smelled of glacier silt and wet cedar. Luna the barred owl circled overhead, hooting warnings about rising water levels. Spring runoff was peaking. Dusk painted the mountains purple as the friends huddled beneath an overhang of roots. The river's roar filled every silence. They waited for the water to drop, but it only seemed to rise, carrying more debris. Hours passed. Stars emerged. Miko's small body shivered against Finn's warmth, Ducky tucked beneath a wing-like fold of the fox's tail. Hope flickered low. Would they be trapped here forever? Just after moonrise, help arrived in the form of an unlikely ally, a young river otter named Ripple. Sleek and playful, she slid down the bank with a chirp, curious about the strange gathering. Otters know rivers better than any creature. Sensing their desperation, Ripple chattered instructions. She revealed a hidden logjam upstream, a natural bridge formed by fallen giants, sturdy enough to cross if timed right. With Ripple leading, the group moved under moonlight. Finn carried Miko on his back, gripping fur tightly. Ducky rode atop Ripple's slick body like a passenger. Step by careful step, they balanced across the tangled logs, water raging beneath. When a log shifted, Ripple steadied them with her strong tail. On the far shore, Miko leaped into soft moss, laughing in relief, a sound brighter than any before. Courage is not the absence of fear, but crossing the river anyway, especially when trusted friends carry you over the deepest waters. Beyond the Hoh River, the forest opened its arms. The friends emerged from the shadowed old growth into a sunlit subalpine meadow that glowed like a secret kept for centuries. Wildflowers painted the ground in sweeping strokes of lupin purple, paintbrush red, and avalanche lily white. Snow-capped Olympic peaks rose all around, framing the sky like guardians. As they stepped into the open, a low rumble rolled across the meadow, not thunder, but the deep, resonant bugle of a bull Roosevelt elk. A massive herd grazed in the distance, antlers gleaming in the late summer light. For the first time in days, the air felt wide and free. Miko's eyes grew huge. He had never seen so much sky at once. But something else caught his attention. Faint human voices drifting on the breeze, accompanied by the click of camera shutters. The joy faded quickly. Ducky's tiny heart raced. He knew humans meant danger. His mother had been chased by dogs near a campground. Finn's hackles rose. Roads and people had taken his family. Worst of all was Miko. Deep in his memory lived flashes of bright lights, cages, and hands that had separated him from the warm troop of his birth. The diaper he still wore, now frayed to threads, was a human remnant he couldn't escape. Hunger returned too. The meadow offered grass for elk, but little for a monkey, a fox kit, and a duckling. They were exposed here, with nowhere to hide. This was Hurricane Ridge Meadow in Olympic National Park, one of America's most beloved high country vistas. Marmots whistled from rocky outcrops, and black-tailed deer browsed quietly. Butterflies danced over beargrass plumes. A crystal stream meandered through, fed by melting snowfields. Park trails wound nearby, bringing hikers in colorful jackets who carried binoculars and trekking poles. Rangers in green trucks patrolled gravel roads, protecting both wildlife and visitors. The group crouched low in tall grass as a family of hikers passed just yards away, laughing and photographing the elk. Ripple the otter had slipped back to her river, and Luna watched silently from a lone fir. Time stretched again. Every footstep on the trail felt like a threat. Would they be seen, captured, separated forever? Then help came from the sky and the earth at once. Luna swooped low, guiding them toward a hidden clump of alder near the stream. There, a gentle park ranger named Maya, on solo patrol, spotted the unusual gathering through her binoculars. Instead of calling for capture, she recognized orphans in need. Quietly, she left a small pile of safe foods, apple slices, unsalted nuts, and mealworms, before retreating to observe from afar. By evening, bellies full and fear eased, The friends played under the alpenglow. Miko climbed a low shrub and laughed as Finn chased him in circles, while Ducky splashed in the stream. For the first time, they felt watched over, not hunted. In places protected by human hearts as well as laws, even the smallest and strangest creatures can find room to simply be. The meadow had felt like paradise, but paradise in the Olympics is never permanent. Late summer turned restless, and the mountains began to whisper of change. One evening, the wind shifted, carrying the sharp scent of snow from the high peaks even though autumn had barely begun. Without warning, the sky cracked open. A sudden Pacific storm, fierce and unseasonal, swept in from the ocean. Thunder boomed like artillery. Lightning forked across the ridge, illuminating the meadow in stark white flashes. Rain lashed sideways, turning the soft ground into rivers of mud. The friends scattered instinctively. Finn bolted for the tree line, Ducky flapped toward the stream, and Miko, panicked, scrambled up the nearest alder. In moments, the unthinkable happened. They lost each other. The wind howled so loudly that calls were swallowed. Rain stung like ice needles. Miko clung to a swaying branch high above the ground, his tiny body soaked and shivering. The last threads of his diaper tore away, leaving him bare and exposed. He cried out, but no familiar yip or quack answered. Below, Finn searched frantically, nose to the mud, but the downpour erased every scent. Ducky, swept downstream in the swollen creek, fought the current with desperate wings. For the first time since their meeting at the brook, each was utterly alone again. The storm had torn their fragile family apart. These sudden storms are part of Olympic weather lore, warm moist air colliding with cold mountain fronts, spawning microbursts that hit without warning. Flood warnings flashed on distant ranger radios. Trails turned treacherous with flash floods and falling branches. Marmots vanished into burrows, elk sought lower ground, and even the resilient ravens hunkered under spruce boughs. The meadow stream, once gentle, now raged brown with silt and uprooted grass. The storm raged through the night. Miko wedged himself into a fork of the alder, too terrified to move. Finn circled the meadow's edge, refusing to leave. Ducky, exhausted, finally hauled out onto a logjam far downstream. Dawn came gray and dripping. The thunder moved east, but heavy mist lingered. Each friend waited, hearts heavy, listening for any sign of the others. Would the storm claim them forever? As the clouds thinned, help threaded through the mist. Ranger Maya, who had watched over them before, had monitored weather alerts and returned at first light with a search team. Using spotting scopes, they located Miko high in the tree and gently coaxed him down with a soft blanket and warm bottle. Further downstream, a volunteer naturalist found Ducky huddled on the log. Finn, ever wary, allowed Maya to approach only when he saw his friends safely cradled in human arms. Reunited in a quiet ranger cabin porch, wrapped in towels and sharing a sunlit corner, the three pressed close. The storm had terrified them, but surviving it together, thanks to watchful humans, deepened their trust beyond instinct. Sometimes the fiercest storms separate us only to show how strongly we belong together, and that gentle hands can help mend what nature breaks. The storm had passed, but its lessons lingered. On the wide porch of the ranger cabin at Hurricane Ridge, wrapped in soft towels and warmed by the first pale sunlight, Miko, Ducky, and Finn pressed close together. Their eyes reflected the same quiet understanding. The wild had given them friendship, but it could not always keep them safe. That morning, Ranger Maya made a call that would change everything. She contacted the Progressive Animal Welfare Society, PAWS, Wildlife Center near Seattle, one of America's leading rehabilitation facilities for native and exotic orphans. A team was dispatched immediately. As the specialized van wound up the mountain road, the friends sensed the shift. This was not capture, this was rescue. Letting go hurt. Miko whimpered as gentle hands lifted him into a warm carrier lined with blankets. Ducky quacked softly in protest when separated for his own water-safe transport. Finn, usually wary of humans, allowed himself to be cradled only because Maya whispered promises of reunion. The deepest ache was the fear that their extraordinary bond, monkey, duckling, and fox, would be dismissed as impossible and broken forever. In the wild, they had defied nature's rules. Would humans understand? PAWS sits on acres of protected woodland in Washington state, with enclosures mimicking natural habitats. Heated pools for waterfowl, forested runs for mammals, climbing structures for primates. Veterinarians specialize in interspecies bonding, and the center partners with Olympic National Park for releases when possible. Here, orphaned animals from across the Northwest, black bear cubs, fawns, eagle fledglings, receive care rooted in compassion and science. Days turned to weeks. Miko grew stronger in a nursery with soft toys and daily fruit. Ducky thrived in an aviary pond with other mallard ducklings. Finn romped in a large wooded enclosure learning hunt skills from older fox mentors. Staff watched anxiously. Would the trio remember one another? Would their bond survive separate healing? Then came the moment everyone hoped for. In a quiet, fenced meadow designed for socialization, the three were reintroduced under careful supervision. Miko's eyes widened first. He let out a joyful shriek and bounded toward Finn, who yipped and rolled in delight. Ducky flapped over, splashing into a small stream nearby. Within minutes, they were chasing one another through grass exactly as they had by that first forest brook. The staff exchanged tears and smiles. The bond had held. Today, Miko, Ducky, and Finn live together in a specially designed habitat at Paws, an education ambassador area where visitors learn about wildlife rescue, habitat loss, and the power of unlikely friendships. Miko swings from ropes in a fresh diaper only for photos, Ducky leads pond tours, and Finn charms crowds with his playful grin. They are no longer orphans, but family. In America's wild and caring hearts alike, the greatest adventures end not with going home, but with finding one, especially when love writes the rules that nature alone could never imagine.